My name is Jodan Boyd, and I happen to have been lucky enough to have been one of the founding members of this organization, which was really founded by Bonnie Sarkeesian White, but she picked 4 or 5 of us to join her on that first meeting, and I have a newspaper clipping here for a picture of the members of the founding group of the Live Poets Society. And this Winsboro News article and photo is dated April the 8th, 2010. And it says, First Poets Society Meeting. First meeting of the newly formed Live Poets Society was held recently at the Winsboro Center for the Arts, 200 Market Street. Next meeting is set for Friday, April 16th. Attending the meeting were Bonnie Sarkeesian White, Liz Sautendick, Jodan Boyd, Karen Jerome, Johnny Jerome, Angela Wiley, and Lucy Germany, the one that Conrad mentioned a while ago and has passed the book around. Is that it, Jill, of Doc's spot there? Yes. Is that the Lucy Germany book? Lucy had I think she had more than one book of poems published. I'll just say this date should remind us all that we are approaching our 10-year anniversary. Woo-hoo! So that will be next meeting. The second meeting was scheduled for Friday, April 16. And so that means our first meeting was in March. So in March, we need to start thinking right now what we're going to do to celebrate that 10th anniversary meeting. So that's one more in between February meeting coming up. That'll be the only one before our 10th anniversary meeting. So be thinking about that.
You'll be cake and ice cream furnished by Doc.
What?
Cake and ice cream, lettered and furnished by Doc and Jill.
Okay.
And sung by the same.
In the way of announcements, I'll just mention that Ken read a poem by Robert Frost, Miles to Go Before I Keep. I don't know, was that the title or?
No, it was called Stopping by Woods of the Snowy Evening.
Okay. Robert Frost was even more famous when I was in school than he is now. In fact, that particular poem was required memory work in one of my English classes in WHS, Winsboro High School. So I was quite familiar with that and glad to hear it read aloud tonight. Last month when we met here, I went through some of Conrad's books that he had for sale and bought a Robert Frost poems book from him, and I've been reading, and there's some really, one that I was tempted to read tonight is called, which I'd never heard or read before, called The Witch of Coos, C-O-O-S. That is a extremely strange poem for Robert Frost's fans. It doesn't fit into any of the categories that we normally associate with him. And there was another one in here that caught my attention called Home Burial. Now, home burials used to be very common. People had private cemeteries at home. That sort of thing was, and so in fact, Lee Cemetery, the primary cemetery for this area, the Winsboro City Cemetery has been full for a long time. There's like that sign that Ken was talking about on the church, about pastor on vacation, church closed. There's some kind of sign, I think, on the city cemetery. I don't know what it says. I'm not even sure there's a sign, but I'm sure, since it's a closed cemetery, there's probably some reference to that. If not on the gate to the cemetery, at least in the Bill Jones history of the cemetery. But the point I'm getting at is, there's no room for more burials there. And Lee Cemetery started in 1856, and that was in fact, it was a family cemetery when it started. It was the Lee family cemetery. And that little plot that contained the descendants of Benjamin Lee and is still cordoned off by a wrought iron fence there in the big Lee Cemetery, which is now a little over 10 acres. This was a family cemetery that caught on early on in the history of this area, and people started asking the Lee family, could we bury our kin, our family, in your cemetery? And he would agree to that, I'm sure. At times, maybe sometimes he didn't. But over time, it became a public cemetery. It's a non-profit cemetery. And believe me, that makes a difference. I've been to, I happen to be chairman of the board of the Lee Cemetery, and when we put in the lawn crypt system in 2001, we asked to visit the nearest one of those profit cemeteries, which happened to be in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And I went up there and spent a day, and I found everything that was priced in this for-profit cemetery was several times higher than everything at Lee Cemetery. So that's the difference between a non-profit and a for-profit cemetery. Now I'm going to just mention a current event tomorrow night at Tenney Chapel, the third Saturday night music night will take place. And it starts at 6:30, ends at 8. It's free, open to the public, and everyone's welcome to be there. Some of you are regulars there, others not so much, but it's open to anybody who wants to come. Some of you will remember that I have been reading poetry from my best friend in high school, Barto, and this is the title page that he put on a collection of some of his, what he thought was his better poems. It's called Barto's Verse, and I've read a few of those in the past few months. I'm going to read a couple of short ones tonight in his honor. Barto Fanning, again, is the name. His actual name is Norris Lynn Fanning, but his dad was named Bart Fanning, and when he was in high school, everybody called him Barto. Not sure why, but they did, and he answered to it, still does. So, some of you, like me, have probably had occasion to have a neighbor who was not the most friendly, and maybe not your most favorite person. I don't know, probably, it's hard for me to see how anybody could live even a few years and not have that happen to them at least once in their life. And so Barto was so inspired when that trial of his life ended, when one of his neighbors was moving, that he sat down and wrote this poem. And the title of it is, My Neighbor is Moving. So I'm going to read that one, and then I'm going to conclude with another one. This is a realism poem. He tells it like it was for his experience with that neighbor. Some of it's humorous and some of it is tragic. My neighbor is moving, hooray, hooray. Bon voyage and Godspeed on his way. I've tried to be neighborly, friendly, polite, Always figured, takes two to fight. I told him my name, he just looked at me blank. He said, I prefer to be addressed by my rank. Yes, sir, Major, I said, whatever you say. My snappy salute he took the wrong way. He may not be a real jackass per se, but he surely did rub me the wrong way. And I'm South and I'm Texas and I'm proud of it. He's a damn Yankee and he's not ashamed of it. On election day, he goes to the wrong primary. His politics make me look plumb reactionary. His kids show no respect and they dress a disgrace. They trash talk their elders right to their face. His kids are just rotten all down the line, but he freely advises me how to raise mine. They just play loud music all day and all day. I swear you could hear it 2 miles away. They never heard of Hank or Dylan, Beethoven, or Bach. Their 15-inch woofers play screaming punk rock. He cheers for the visitors at every home game, and he takes the good Lord's name in vain. The trip to Las Vegas is his idea of fun. He never goes fishing, and he don't own a gun. His cat is a hideous lard and furball. Pampered and powdered, fixed and declawed. His dog barks at nothing from dusk to dawn, and then he comes over and poops on my lawn. My neighbor is moving. Hooray, hooray, bon voyage, and Godspeed on his way. Barto fan.
I think I know that guy.
All of us have known that fellow, I think, at one time or another. This final one is a more serious poem in my mind, and I think one of his really better efforts. It's called Barto on Time. Yesterday was a week ago tomorrow, and too soon tomorrow is history. Where has all of this year gone? Now whole seasons get away from me, but to a child who is impatient for promises you have not met, directly seems to take forever. By and by, you might as well forget. Time, they say, is a curious thing, a corner of forever, folded up and torn. On it, they say, our fate is written from the moment we're born. But time's not sand in an hourglass, not the pages in a book. All those days behind us were marked by the toll they took. But the future has not happened yet, and it very well may not, at least not the way we think it will. From the projections that we've got, not knowing time, we grossly err. Perceptions flawed fatally somehow, while we hurtle through eternity on a wave I call the plane of now. You never have enough time, so what you do, you best do quick, because time is thin on the plane of now, not a nanosecond thick. Circumstances be in the way things are. In collision, events make. Events change the way we are and leave history in their wake. Magnitude and proximity are the only tools you own. The shadows that you cast today are not persistent when you're gone. So you be sure to leave some mark to show you have been here, or your life will count for nothing, with no weeping over your beer. Beer is spelled B-I-E-R, by the way. Barto Fanning, my best friend and one of my favorite books. We always traditionally close with a paragraph from How to Read a Poem subtitled And Fall in Love with Poetry by Edward Hirsch. We're on chapter 3 now, page 47. We'll probably, when this organization is a century old, we'll be finished with another 90 years, another 9 more decades. I want to look closely at 3 poems, one by John Keats that gestures toward and seeks connection, one by James Wright that finds a momentary human contact and communion, and one by Charles Baudelaire that shuns any such contact or affinity. I want to see what is being offered us and what is being withheld. Each of these poems seeks to go beyond the ambiguity of words to the certainty of touch. And unfortunately, that paragraph ends there, and we will pick that up next month and continue the search. Trayvon, is that the way you pronounce your name?
Trevor?
Trevor.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to say anything to the group about your interest and love of poetry and friendship with Conrad or anything?
Yeah,
Come on up.
everybody.
Come up to the microphone and we'll get you on tape.
I just appreciate everybody here in Winsboro. I see all y'all in the store all the time. That helps support me and our company, you know. Without y'all, I wouldn't be here, so appreciate everybody, and next time, I want to go around and read, so.
You do a great job in the public
Well,
side.
thank you, I appreciate everybody coming in and everything, I appreciate y'all very much.
She blows up all the balloons for the birthday party.
Had a good time, I'll be back every month. Conrad's gonna come in there and remind me.
That's right.
Yep.
You always tell me, you keep on thinking, I'll keep on grinning.
That's right, I'm a grinner, I'm not much of a picker, but I'm a grinner.
All right, well, I conclude.
Are we still recording? Yeah, go ahead.